물어,
an,
보다.
with.
적소스, howtostudykorean.com introduction.
In this lesson, you will learn about how to use
려고,
an
러,
in sentences to have the meaning of for the purpose of in order to. You will also learn how to add
보다.
to verbs to have the meaning of attempt try to, which is often used with a noun.
척,
Let's get started with the intention of doing.
으려고,
Adding
으려고.
to the stem of the verb gives it the meaning of with the intention of or in order to.
려고,
Gets added to stems ending in a vowel n.
으려고.
Gets added to stems ending in a consonant. For example,
밖에 나가려고.
with the intention of going outside in order to go outside.
그 사람을 살리려고.
With the intention of saving that person in order to save that person. The constructions we have created above are not full sentences. They are just clauses that we can put into sentences. We can create full sentences by adding a clause to the end of them. For example,
밖에 일찍 나가려고 숙제를 빨리 했어요. equal.
I did my homework fast in order to go out early.
저는 신발을 신으려고 잠깐 앉았어요. equal.
I sat down for a minute in order to put on my shoe. The translation of to, so that, or with the intention are also usually appropriate, as they all describe the same thing. For example,
밖에 일찍 나가려고 숙제를 빨리 했어요. equal.
I did my homework fast so that I could go out early.
밖에 일찍 나가려고 숙제를 빨리 했어요. equal.
I did my homework fast to go out early.
밖에 일찍 나가려고 숙제를 빨리 했어요. equal.
I did my homework fast with the intention of going out early. Here are many more examples.
저는 그 사람을 살리려고 경찰관을 불렀어요. equal.
I called the police officer in order to save that person.
저는 정신과 의사가 되려고 열심히 공부하고 있어요. equal.
I am studying hard to become a psychiatrist.
그 문제를 해결하려고 우리는 잠깐 만났어요. equal.
In order to solve that problem, we met for a little bit.
그 뜻을 이해하려고 책을 2번 읽었어요. equal.
In order to understand that meaning, I read a book twice.
학생들을 평가하려고 내일 시험을 볼 거예요. equal.
In order to evaluate the students, they will do an exam tomorrow.
이렇게 많은 내용을 학생들에게 가르치려고 고생을 많이 했어요. equal.
I worked hard suffered in order to teach that much content to the students.
저는 일을 구하려고 그 회사에 이력서를 냈어요. equal.
I submitted my resume to the company with the intention of applying for that job.
저는 그 일에 지원하려고 그 회사에 이력서를 냈어요. equal.
I submitted my resume to the company with the intention of applying for that job. You can specifically use
으려고.
at the end of a sentence when the remainder of that sentence can be assumed. When used like this, it typically indicates what the speaker is just about to do. It is usually used in response to a question. For example,
마트에 갔어요. equal.
have you gone to the store? Did you go to the store?
아니요, 지금 가려고요. equal.
No, but I'm going right now. I'm just about to go.
일을 다 했어. equal.
Have you finished the work? Did you finish the work?
지금 하려고. equal.
I'm doing it right now. I'm just about to do it. Finish it. Notice that these constructions look like incomplete sentences because
으려고.
is usually used between clauses, as you can see in the examples provided earlier in the lesson, and not to end a sentence. However, the language has evolved to allow the above constructions to be correct. Also notice that you can add the honorific
요.
to
으려고.
when used at the end of a sentence to make the sentence more formal. You will learn many other grammatical principles throughout your Korean studies that typically connect two clauses, but can be used at the end of a sentence like this if the context allows for it. In most of these cases, it is acceptable to attach
요.
to make it polite, even though it is not an actual conjugated word. The clauses that you can add after
으려고.
are, for all intents and purposes, endless as long as the situation makes sense. However, one verb that is very commonly used after
으려고.
is,
노력하다.
which means to put effort into. We will talk about this next. Full stop. To try to
려고 노력하다.
If you want to say I try to, you can use the verb
노력하다,
after.
으려고.
For example,
그 친구를 매 주말 만나려고 노력해요. equal.
I try to meet that friend every weekend.
한국어를 배우려고 노력하고 있어요. equal.
I am trying to learn Korean.
노력하다,
Itself means to try, put effort into something. So literally, the sentences means, in order to meet that friend every weekend, I try, and in order to learn Korean, I am trying. But neither of those sentences, in English, sounds natural. It is more natural to just say I try. You could also add this to a long line of other words. It's hard to explain, and you would never really need to say something like this, but understanding it will help you with grammar, a little bit. When I first started learning things like this, I always asked how I would say I think I want to start to try to learn Korean. Perfect sentence, but nobody would ever really say anything that ridiculous. You know everything in that sentence except I think, so with what you learned today, you should know how to say I want to start to try to learn Korean.
한국어를 배운다. equal.
I learn Korean.
한국어를 배우려고 노력한다. equal.
I try to learn Korean.
한국어를 배우려고 노력하기 시작한다. equal.
I start to try to learn Korean.
한국어를 배우려고 노력하기 시작하고 싶다. equal.
I want to start to try to learn Korean. Horizontal ellipsis. Hell, like I said, saying something that complex is unnecessary, but understanding it is always good grammar practice. To come, go to.
으러,
The clause connector
으러,
is very similar to,
으려고.
but is specifically used when one is going to or coming from a place in order to do something. To distinguish it from the sentences earlier, these two would not be appropriate.
밖에 일찍 나가러 숙제를 빨리 했어요. equal.
I did my homework fast in order to go out early.
저는 신발을 신으러 잠깐 앉았어요. equal.
I sat down for a minute in order to put on my shoe. Instead,
으러,
should be used when one is going to or coming from a place in order to do something. This usually means that the predicating verb of the whole sentence should be either
가다,
or,
오다.
but other variations of those verbs are also acceptable. For example,
내려가다,
to go down,
내려오다.
to come down,
들어가다,
to go in,
들어오다.
to come in. Here are some examples.
친구를 만나러 왔어. equal.
I came here to meet my friend.
공부하러 학교에 가고 있어. equal.
I'm going to school to study.
표를 예매하러 극장에 가고 있어요. equal.
I am going to the theater to buy the tickets in advance.
그 연예인을 보러 행사에 갔어요. equal.
I went to the event to see that celebrity.
일자리에 지원하러 왔어요. equal.
I came to apply for that job.
옷을 갈아입으러 탈의실에 갔어요. equal.
He went to the change room to change his clothes.
저는 영화를 보러 나가고 싶어요. equal.
I want to go out to see a movie. As you saw before, you cannot use
으러,
instead of.
으려고.
That is, while this sentence is okay,
밖에 일찍 나가려고 숙제를 빨리 했어요.
the following sentence is not correct because it does not use
가다, 오다.
or a similar come-go verb.
밖에 일찍 나가러 숙제를 빨리 했어요.
However, the opposite can be done. That is,
으려고.
can be used instead of.
으러.
For example, all of the sentences below are okay.
표를 예매하려고 극장에 가고 있어요. 그 연예인을 보려고 행사에 갔어요. 일자리에 지원하려고 왔어요. 옷을 갈아입으려고 탈의실에 갔어요. 심심해서 저는 영화를 보려고 나가고 싶어요.
In Lesson 13, you learned about adding
을을 위해.
to nouns to have the meaning for. For example,
나는 나의 여자친구를 위해서 꽃을 샀어. equal.
I bought flowers for my girlfriend. You can also use
위해.
to say that you do something for the purpose of a verb. To do this, you attach
기 위해.
to a verb, just like you did with
으러.
or.
으려고.
For example,
친구를 만나기 위해 여기로 왔어. equal.
I came here to meet a friend.
친구를 만나러 여기로 왔어. equal.
I came here to meet a friend.
친구를 만나려고 여기로 왔어. equal.
I came here to meet a friend.
공부하기 위해 학교에 가고 있어 equal.
I'm going to school to study.
공부하러 학교에 가고 있어 equal.
I'm going to school to study.
공부하려고 학교에 가고 있어 equal.
I'm going to school to study. It is important to notice that in all of these cases the tense is indicated in the final clause of the sentence. That is, no indication of tense is to be made before.
기 위해 물어무려고.
For example, notice how the tense is indicated in the final clause of the following sentences.
친구를 만나러 학교에 갔어요 equal.
I went to school to meet a friend.
친구를 만나러 학교에 가고 있어요 equal.
I am going to school to meet a friend.
친구를 만나러 학교에 갈 거예요 equal.
I will go to school to meet a friend.
공연을 보러 행사에 갔어요 equal.
I went to the event to see the performance.
공연을 보러 행사에 가고 있어요 equal.
I am going to the event to see the performance.
공연을 보러 행사에 갈 거예요 equal.
I will go to the event to see the performance. Before we finish this lesson, let's look at another grammatical principle that is often translated similarly to the ones above. To attempt.
보다.
Adding
보다.
to the stem of a verb gives it the meaning of to attempt try. The translations to English are very similar, if not identical to,
으려고 물어기 위해.
but the meanings are very different. Notice the similarities in the English translations of the following sentences.
나는 밥을 먹으려고 노력했다 equal.
I tried to eat rice.
나는 밥을 먹어봤다 equal.
I tried to eat the rice. I would like to describe the meaning of
보다.
by distinguishing it from the use of try in the translation of
으려고 으러기 위해 나는 밥을 먹으려고 노력했다.
means that you try to eat rice in the sense that you put effort into eating. A less ambiguous, but less natural, translation would be I put effort into eating the rice.
나는 밥을 먹어봤어.
Means that you tried rice, similar to the meaning that you tried something out. This meaning is not related to the effort of eating the rice, but instead the experience of the test or trial or attempt of trying the rice. Another good way to translate that sentence would be to say I gave the rice a try. It is a little bit confusing at first because the best translations of both sentences above is to use try, which can be very ambiguous. In my examples below, I prefer to use the simple translation of try when using
보다.
because it is usually the most natural way to express that meaning. When reading the English translations below, keep in mind that the usage of try is not related to effort, but instead related to a trial test attempt. Let's look at some examples.
엄마가 요리한 음식을 먹어봤어 equal.
Did you try the food mom cooked?
결혼하기 위해 남자들을 만나봤어 equal.
In order to get married, I tried meeting a lot of men.
그 신발을 신어봤어요 equal.
I tried on the shoes.
옛날 친구를 연락해봤어요 equal.
I tried contacting an old friend.
그 셔츠를 탈의실에서 입어봤어요 equal.
I tried on that shirt in the change room.
비상 출구를 찾아볼 거예요 equal.
I will look for the emergency exit.
그 업무를 처음으로 해봤어요 equal.
I tried that work for the first time.
그 회사에 지원해 볼 거예요 equal.
I am going to try to apply to the company.
이력서를 회사에서 일하는 비서에게 줘봤어요 equal.
I tried giving my resume to the secretary who works at that office. One of the most common usages of
보다.
is when you are telling somebody to do something. In essence, telling somebody to try attempt something. I have yet to teach you about the imperative mood. This will be discussed in lesson 40, so you won't understand these example sentences completely. Regardless, examine the following example sentences to try to understand how
보다.
is being used.
그것을 확인해 봐 equal.
Check that. Try checking that.
이것을 먹어봐 equal.
Eat this. Try eating this.
여기 와 보세요 equal.
Come here. Try coming here.
지금 앉아봐 equal.
Sit down. Try sitting down.
문을 열어봐 equal.
Open the door. Try opening the door.
먼저 가봐 equal.
Go first. Try going first.
이거를 봐봐 equal.
Look at this. Try looking at this.
이것을 드셔보세요 equal.
Eat this. Try eating this.
이 차를 마셔보세요 equal.
Drink this tea. Try drinking this tea. Another common usage of the
보다.
grammatical form is used in conjunction with the pseudonoun,
적,
which we will talk about next, the noun of experience.
적,
In lesson 30, you learned about the pseudonoun.
지.
For example,
밥을 먹은 지 5분 됐다 equal.
I have been eating for 5 minutes. In that lesson, you learned that
지.
is one of a handful of nouns that have no meaning when used on their own. However, when used in connection with a describing verb or adjective, they have a special meaning. Left double quotation mark
적,
is another one of these nouns which cannot be used on its own. However, if you add
는,
to a verb stem in place,
적,
after
는, 적,
has the meaning of experience. Notice that
는,
is the same addition that is added to verbs when the past tense form of
는 것,
is added. So, let's go through this step by step. First, you need a verb
먹다.
add
는,
to the verb stem.
은,
Gets added to words ending in a consonant.
니은.
Gets added directly to words ending in a vowel. So we get,
먹은 애들 적, 먹은 적.
if I were to say,
김치를 먹은 적,
it would mean the experience of eating kimchi. Remember that
적.
is a noun that means experience when used this way. But you can't end sentences with nouns, so you need to finish the sentence with
있다.
or
없다.
to mean to have the experience of eating kimchi or to not have the experience of eating kimchi. For example,
김치를 먹은 적이 없어요 equal.
I don't have the experience of eating kimchi, which is translated naturally to I have never eaten kimchi. Here are many more examples.
거기에 간 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never gone been there I haven't been there.
그 여자를 만난 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never met that girl I haven't met that girl.
연예인을 만난 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never met anybody famous.
이런 업무를 한 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never done this type of work before.
이런 공연을 평일에 본 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never seen a performance like this on a weekday.
그 영화를 본 적이 있어요 equal.
Have you seen that movie? Because
적,
refers to an experience. It is common to attach
보다.
to the preceding verb to indicate that the particular experience was tried attempted.
거기에 가 본 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never been there. Tried going there.
그 여자를 만나 본 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never met that girl. Tried meeting her.
저는 치과에 가 본 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never tried going to, been to the dentist.
이력서를 만들어 본 적이 없어요 equal.
I have never tried making a resume before.
그 영화를 봐 본 적이 있어요 equal.
Have you tried seeing that movie? Notice that even in the final example, the word
보다.
to see watch is not the same as the
보다.
in the
보다.
grammatical principle. Therefore, it is not unnatural to say
보다.
twice in a row. That's it. For more info, please visit howtostudiokorean.com.